Well, hello there. It's Kermit Carter with Flowers by the Sea, and we're going to discuss potting up. That is, taking a plant that you've received from us. This is a Salvia spathaceae, for example, hummingbird sage, California native, and putting it in a larger pot to grow it up. Now, that's something you might want to do because you grow in containers and you've chosen this plant specifically to be in a container, or you might want to put it in a larger pot because the bed you need to plant it in isn't ready, or it's too early in the year and there's a danger of cold weather, or any other kind of reason. So I'm not going to talk about arranging plants in containers and container styles and the like. We're just going to talk about the basics of potting up. Now, I tend to like clay pots, terracotta pots. They breathe and they dry well. Whereas pots, plastic pots, which we use in the nursery business, tend not to drain as well. Air doesn't go through the plastic, the roots stay wetter. In some places that's good. If you're in a really hot area, using plastic pots may in fact be advantageous. If you're in cooler areas, using clay pots may facilitate better root growth for your plants. So just a couple of quick things about the pots. The pot should be suitably sized to the plant. In other words, I've got this little Salvia jurisicae. It's from Bulgaria. Its total size is maybe 6 inches tall. The flower spikes may go to a foot. Full grown, it'll be this big. It's a slow grower. If I put it in a large pot like this, immediately there's a lot of volume of soil that doesn't have roots in it to begin with. The roots are in here. And if I fill this with soil and plant it, there's this huge volume of soil without any roots. Roots dry soil out. Plants are pumps. They pump water out their leaves and they pull it up from the roots. And so until this roots into this mass of soil, it's going to be very difficult to keep this plant watered properly. The tendency is going to be to overwater. And in fact, knowing this plant, and that's one of the reasons I chose it, it will only when full grown be big enough to fill this plant with roots, and it's kind of a slow grower. So planting this plant in this pot is a death sentence. In here, it's marginal. In here, I'd say, yeah, there's a chance for this to work. And so if you were going to plastic containers, what they call 1-gallon cans or number ones is about as large as I'd go, and actually that's a little big. For a plant that's this special, I'd use a clay pot no matter where I was. All right, so that is going to go in there. And we've got something fast growing here. This is Salvia Love and Wishes from Australia, brand new. Not many people offering it yet. A beautiful plant related to Wendy's Wish that's been around for a few years. It's a very fast grower. And if I planted that one in this small pot, in 2 weeks, it would start to outgrow the pot. In here, 3 weeks. In here, well, maybe I'll get a month or 5 or 6 weeks, and in fact, it'll bloom and look nice. It's probably not a large enough pot for it eventually. I'd want something more along this size. That's a 12-inch clay pot, so the plant could achieve its full scope. But again, now you can answer this question. Why wouldn't I want to put it directly in this pot? Because there'll be this huge volume of soil without roots, and the tendency will be to overwater. So I'm going to choose this pot, and then a month or 6 weeks from now, when it slows down its growth and you can say, it's running out of space for its roots, then I'll think about putting it in this size or even something a little larger. So we'll just pot these two up real quickly. I'm not going to talk a lot about the potting soil that you use. You want to be careful about what you choose. We use the same material all the time. It's called ProMix, and we use a formulation that's inoculated with beneficial bacteria and fungi. We use it with everything. And in a nursery situation, it's really important not to have so many variables that you can't deal with them appropriately. So we're going to use this mix, even though some of you might use a different mix in a pot. And here I've got some broken crockery, and broken crockery is what I use on the hole in the bottom of the pot. So let's take this Jurassicae, and I'm going to take a crockery and put it on the bottom there to cover the hole and to keep the soil from coming out. All right. And put some soil in there, compact it lightly. Now let me take a look at the root system. This plant has been growing in here for several months. This is a slow growing plant. It's kind of rare. It's a beautiful thing. The flowers are upside down. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's really a cute thing. But you can see it doesn't have much of a root system, and it'll be really easy to break that root system up when I'm planting it. So I'm going to use a trick that I use a lot. I'm going to take that empty pot from this plant and I'm going to use it as a mold. So I'm going to put it inside this pot. Okay, and then I'm going to put soil around the sides of it. I'll show you when I'm finished what this looks like. It's an old trick that I learned when I was probably 6 or 7 years old. All right, so now we've compacted that soil appropriately and we've got it in there just at the right height, and now I can remove the pot. Look at that, and I've got a hole there just the right size for the plant. I take this, drop it right in place, tap it down a few times to settle it, and there we go. Salvia Jurassicae. Minimal disturbance in the right size pot, doesn't take long, you don't need to fool with it much. Now let's take a look at this Love and Wishes. And we are going to put this in a slightly larger pot. I'm going to take another piece of crockery to cover the hole, and sometimes I'll take 2 or 3 pieces. Not only does that keep soil from going out the hole in the bottom, it keeps roots from clogging the hole up, which sometimes is an issue. I'm going to put some soil in here, and now let's take a look at the Love and Wishes. And this is not going to have a really substantial root system yet. These are young plants, but you can see there's a little better root there. And I could use that same trick, or I'm going to do something a little differently here just so you can see a more traditional method. So the first thing is to get the plant in at the right height, and I've got it essentially an inch down from the top of the container, and I'm going to bury the top of that root ball, a 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So I'll have a well for water 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch on the top. And then it's real simple just to fill that up with soil. The amount of compaction that you use depends on the kind of soil you're using. Some bagged soils can take a lot of compaction, others not much. We tend to be fairly gentle here. By gently packing rather than aggressively packing, you are better able to accommodate air moving through the root mass, and roots need air as much as they need water. There we go. I only want to talk about one more thing. So that plant can stay in this pot a month or 6 weeks. It'll be beautiful and in bloom. If you have a small patio or a windowsill, you could probably grow it in this pot. It's going to outgrow the pot, but you can prune it back and keep it there. It's sort of the minimal size, but it's where I would start. Now, aftercare for these. It's really important once you've disturbed the roots of a plant, and we did minor disturbance to these, that they get watered in very well, and that typically they're put in a slightly sheltered place for a while. A little bit more shade than you normally would, out of the wind if you can, no glaring heat. Give them a few days until they start to grow, and you'll be able to notice, you'll say, that started to grow again, and then you can move it into its permanent location. So, how to pot up salvias to hold them for a while. I hope that's helped, and for now we're signing off.